Welcome to the Warren Cycling Podcast. My name is Dean Warren. I'm in Munich, Germany today.
And I'm Randy Warren, and I'm in Asheville, North Carolina.
It's episode 332 of the Warren Cycling Podcast. Today is the 21st of August, 2023, and we got another Grand Tour coming up. Just finished some smaller stage races, watching those. And you've got, looks like, Masters National Championship. Your head's covering the begin date. There we go, August 23rd to 27th. Those are about the same days as the Deutschland Tour, too, is coming up, which I thought was going to come right through the Frankfurt area, so I could maybe get a trip to go see it. But it's like skipping that area, starting further southwest and then skip. Well, but then I got a Barcelona trip to go to the Vuelta anyway, so it was conflicting. And I thought, well, the Vuelta is going to take precedence over the Deutschland Tour. So, yeah.
Masters it's para too. I have a para athlete. So Kai Luan's going to do para road race on Wednesday, and then another athlete, Kai and I, are doing Peter Stevens doing the time trial on Thursday, and then Peter's doing the road race on Friday. And then all the younger guys from Asheville are going to go down the weekend to do the road race and crit on the weekend, but I'm going to go to do the Kershaw gravel race. So, I'll be not watching much racing the next few days. In person, I'll be watching a lot. But
not what's going on internationally, because the Tour de l'Avenir is going on right now. Just finished the Vuelta Burgos, Arctic Circle finished. Tour of Denmark, is that still going on? Maybe. I haven't been paying so much attention. Yeah, I saw Fabio Jakobsen winning some stages there. And well, you just mentioned, though, the para cycling championships with Masters. They used to pair that with the amateur national championships.
Yeah.
And the World Cycling Championships, UCI World Cycling Championships, had the paracycling together, along those almost all disciplines. But it was not set up like an Olympic style, I think, event where they had like a village maybe where you get to see the other athletes, like different disciplines, or at least from what I heard when I listened to some other podcast interview with Kevin Vermaerke. And the U.S. team stayed kind of out in the countryside, so they didn't. Or Larry Werbus, I heard him talking too on the cycling podcast, and so they didn't really get to see like any of the other cyclists or any of the other events. So it's not, they had this super worlds where all the stuff was going on, but it wasn't. I don't think so much crossover where one racer could maybe see another event, except for I guess maybe some of the ones that did do multiple disciplines, the ones that did track and road, or road and mountain bike. And so
although it was there was so much stuff going on, I think some of the races I heard that finished early went to see other venues and see the races, but not hanging out necessarily with the racers. Or I don't think there was, because the venues were so spread out, they probably weren't hanging out with the U.S. team all together or anything like that. But well, it's kind of like too, again, so I remember in the Olympics when I had Victor Plata was my athlete there, and the triathlon was way at the end. It was like the Friday right before the
Athens
Olympics.
Athens.
And so and they wouldn't even let him be in the Olympic Village or opening ceremonies or anything. So all the stuff, the pomp and circumstance that was going on before the very end, he didn't get to participate in any of that. He
didn't get to march in with the parade at the big opening ceremony.
No, he really wanted to, and USTA wouldn't let him, and so he actually even petitioned to the USOC saying, "Hey, I want to be a part of this and march in with the team," and the USOC said they deferred to the USTA, and so USTA said, "No, we're not going to let our athletes do that. So it might make you tired." So actually, I think they might have still been in Florida at that point. They were in Florida right before they went to. Anyway, there were some issues how they handled things. But so anyway, so he didn't. So as soon as his race was over, I think the Friday before the end of the Olympics, he then went to the athlete village and stayed there for a couple of days, the last couple of days to get more of the Olympic experience, because otherwise he felt like he was just at a World Cup triathlon and not like the Olympics. And then he did march in the closing ceremonies and things like that too. So I can see this was kind of not like, it's not as unified thing like you were saying in the Olympics is, but it was still all these different cycling venues. And unless you were racing in multiple ones, you probably didn't mix with a lot of the other racers for sure.
Right. And it just made me think of listening to Mathieu van der Poel, who crashed in the mountain bike race after winning the road race championship.
Did you watch the crash too?
No, I heard it was pretty benign. Like, wasn't it? He just did something stupid. I don't know. But anyway,
I don't think anything stupid. It just it was like, why did he crash? Like, it would make sense.
Out for no reason. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Well, that he, after winning the world championship, he said he's met most of his career goals, and so I think it was Dan Lloyd at the GCN show saying, well, what could be missing from his career goals, and probably an Olympic medal would be something. But if he's gonna have a harder time to qualify if he wants to do it in the mountain bike. So on the road, I don't know what kind of course they'll have, but it could be difficult. Yeah. So.
Well, in Paris, it's not going to be a mountainous course. There's just no mountains there. So they can make it hilly for sure. It can go outside the city. But it is going to do laps. And it goes through the city multiple times. So I don't know if that's going to be like at the end of the race, we'll do city laps, or if it'll be in a bigger loop. But I would have to think that it'd be a course that is somewhat, going to be suited for him because, he's a puncher who can sprint. And unless it's a pure sprinters course, which I don't think they'll make it like that.
Probably, yeah.
They'll probably add punchy hills outside the city someplace. So it seems like it would be something that would.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah. Is it usually a long race too, like a long classics race, or so.
Yeah, like a world championship distance kind of thing.
Yeah, which would favor him. So.
Yeah, and usually it's circuits too of some sort. So in Tokyo, they actually went out. They started in Tokyo or something, and then rode out to Mount Fuji, and then did laps around a circuit out there. So sometimes they'll do the circuits.
Did they come back to Tokyo?
No, they finished out.
They finished
away from the city. Yeah. But Paris though is gonna finish though. I think it's gonna start and finish in the city. Is because we're gonna go and sort of looking at tickets and stuff too, and they have grandstand tickets you supposedly could buy, but I haven't seen them for sale yet. So at some point they should be available to buy. And they said, I think that would be the start and the finish.
But no kind of route has been announced yet, has it?
No, I think they do show a route for some of the ones in the city, like where it'll be in the center.
Will it be similar to like the Champs-Élysées, like the Paris, the finish
right
for the Tour?
Yeah, right. It's going to be right in that area. Yeah. So I think the start finish goes across. It's not the same finish as the Tour, but I think they do run through the Champs-Élysées, or they're right really close to that. Otherwise, right along the River Seine for the start finish.
Interesting. Well, yeah.
So I think Mathieu van der Poel has got to be targeting that. You'd think, especially with the bad luck he's had in mountain biking.
Yeah. I wouldn't think you'd put a lot of emphasis on that. He's won 3 out of the 5 monuments. I don't know if. Il Lombardia would probably be too much climbing for him to win. Liège-Bastogne-Liège seems like one that he could win.
Yes.
So, but
I would think even Il Lombardia maybe, but he'd have to change his program a lot because it's right before cross season. He'd probably have to lose a little weight. I don't know.
Yeah, interesting. Well, he's met a lot of those big goals, and he's definitely one of the top one-day racers. So. What do you start out? The Burgos race? What? I don't know. Is it pronounced Burgos? Like it's spelled? Probably, huh?
It's
Spanish upper northern Spain. Yeah, but the big news, I guess, is Roglič won another stage race. And he's won like every stage race this year. He's won.
Everybody's entered
20 stage races now. 20 stage races. It's pretty amazing. And 70.
Especially for a guy who crashes quite a bit.
70-some wins overall too. 77. So. I mean, he's had a pretty amazing career. So he's lining up as co-leader with Jonas Vingegaard, who don't know what kind of shape he's in after the Tour, what he's done. So, and then Remco Evenepoel, of course, the other big favorite. Then next tier, you got Carapaz, Geraint Thomas, Adam Yates.
Adam Yates is racing well, but just got beat by Roglič pretty handily too, though. Well, not handily, but it didn't really threaten him.
Alexander Vlasov, he's
Bernal's doing it too, who had a solid tour, not spectacular, but you got to think he's getting better each time too.
Yeah, it seems to be, like Jumbo Visma going for the 3 sweep of all Grand Tour wins this year, that they have the upper hand with the 2 previous Grand Tour winners this year so far with
and the support of
Sepp Kuss. Sepp Kuss is on the start line. His record stands pretty good for Jumbo Visma winning Grand Tours with races. He's been a support rider, and so it's his 3rd Grand Tour of the year. And I was trying to find research what Americans ever done 3 Grand Tours in 1 year, and I didn't find what ones have attempted it. But as of now, no American has completed all 3 Grand Tours in 1 year, in 1 season. So if Sepp makes it to the finish, then he could set a record there, huh?
Yeah, and I think if it has been accomplished, it might be like a Tyler Farrar kind of guy or something like that. Somebody who's a sprinter or not. We were just reading about Marino Lazzaretta, who was a Spanish phenom who did 10 Grand Tours in a row, and he was top 3 in 3 successive ones: the Tour 1 year, and then the Volta and the Giro. When the Volta was before the Giro. So he
only
was
1
top
week
5.
apart, right? Only 1 week apart.
1 week apart between the end of the Volta and the beginning of the Giro. Yeah.
And so back-to-back Grand Tour. That's crazy.
Yeah. And again, he was, he didn't never finish top 5 in 3 in a row, or 3 in the same year.
In the same
but
season,
3 in a row though, he did. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I was thinking that, if an American had did it, it would probably be a rider who's riding more in a support role that didn't have to have the pressure of leadership in all 3. So.
Yeah. Well, Lazzaretta was racing for GC, so that's more difficult than Adam Hansen, who did 13 Grand Tours in a row or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
He did a bunch, but he was more of a classics guy, right?
Breakaway. Yeah, breakaways.
Yeah, but he was a guy riding the flats more. Yeah.
Yeah.
Support rider, not like Sepp, who's he's in the mountain. I mean, he doesn't have to be on every day, but the mountains are where he has to be good and can't hide in the mountains so much. But I think he'll be fine. So
yeah, he hasn't raced, I think, since the Tour, right? So he probably took a small break. And again, when you're in that kind of fitness, taking a small break usually helps, doesn't hurt. So like they always say, you come out of the Tour either in fantastic form or destroyed. And so the hope is that he came out in good form. He did crash, in the 3rd to last stage of the Tour and lost a ton of time, 20-some minutes, but still, finished 12th overall or something like that. So, he may have had to recover from that crash, took a week or so off, and then probably got back to just putting in some miles and stuff like that too. And like you said, he's not called upon to be at his best every day, just, the important climbing days. And so he's been doing this a while now. He's probably getting really good at it.
He's in his prime age for top fitness, so late 20s. But I was thinking what you said about coming out of the Tour either destroyed or in good shape, and Kevin Vermaerke came out in really good shape. I mean, he had an incredible Worlds race, and he's followed that up by a very good Arctic race.
Yeah,
where he finished third.
First podium in a pro race. So yeah, and he's 22, I think, right? 22 years old.
Yeah. He raced last year the Tour he started, but he only got to stage 8, so he had never raced more than like 8 stages in a row. So doing the Tour was a big jump for him, but it seems to have paid off pretty well for him.
Yeah, in the Tour of Norway, he played that really smart. I was reading that he was the designated team leader, so they were riding for him, and he got 1 bonus sprint or bonus point early on in stage 3, I think it was, and there was a split in stage 3, so only 9 guys.
Yeah, the Arctic Tour.
Yeah, Arctic Tour of Norway.
That tour, yeah.
So he was.
Well, there was a separate Tour of Norway.
Oh, there's the Tour of Norway, and then Arctic Tour of Norway is 2 different ones. So the Arctic Tour, they were on the furthest north paved road in the Arctic Tour of Norway.
Artic Race of Norway is the official name.
Right.
Yeah.
So he made the split. There was only 7 seconds, but that was a huge difference. Those 9 guys in that split were the only ones that really were in contention for the overall win then. And then on the last day, he moved from 4th to 3rd by getting 2 more bonus sprints. And he said that the team was organized around him and led him into the sprint, and he was able to get the 2 seconds, and that put him up on the podium.
Over Tobias Holland Johannesson, a Norwegian. So
right, and there was no Norwegian on the podium.
Yeah, he was probably not so popular to knocking a Norwegian off the podium in one of their home races. So it was probably extra hard to do. But yeah, he's racing really well there, Kevin Vermaerke. And I think we have to note, though, the overall winner. Yeah, he is 22. He'll be 23 in October. Right. Kevin Vermaerke.
Oh, yeah.
And he signed through 2025 with DSM-firmenich.
Yeah, good.
And yeah, he's going to do the Deutschland tour, so that's coming up. Yeah, but Stefan Williams. Don't know much about Stefan Williams, British rider, but the British have a lot of young, up-and-coming riders. And, he's not so young, though. 27. So,
Israel Primertech, though, they need the wins, too. So
Yeah. And he doesn't look like he's signed beyond 2023, so that'll help. Yeah, that's good motivation always to do well when you need a contract for the next year.
And he'd been with Bahrain, some iteration of that team back when they were, in 2018, just starting up. He was a trainee, and then has been with them, through McLaren and victorious. Yeah, so he was with them for quite a while, and then moved to Israel Primertech. And generally, you think that kind of move is somebody who isn't in a real strong negotiating standpoint. That Israel definitely has, a different kind of team structure than a lot of teams. But then, to get a win, I mean, this isn't obviously the biggest race in the world, but it's still. And Vermaerke even said that he was doing either the Tour, then he did San Sebastian, then he did World Championships, and so this isn't quite the same caliber as that. But hey, it's still it's a win, and it's a big race.
Right, and another Israel Primertech rider riding at the Tour de l'Avenir, 22-year-old Canadian, took the stage today.
It's the second stage today too, right? Just the second.
Yeah. How many stages are there at the? Probably goes all the way through next weekend to l'Avenir.
Eight stages.
One of the big stage races for under 23. Is it under 23 to do it, or is
Tour of the Future they call it. Definitely, because there's we see, just looking at the American names there too. So we see some of the biggest.
Simmons.
Yeah, I mean, so some of the bigger people in general for the U.S. riders coming up into the World Tour are on this list, and they're into the under 23. So I mean, there's a couple guys too, like Ian Lopez. I'm not super familiar with Ian Lopez, but he's on the team there too. But they also have, Matthew Ricciardelli, our current 3-time champion, Luke Lampardi, is probably gunning for some stage wins on some flatter stages. So he finished okay today, but generally, it's a chance for people to shine at a stage where and you ride for national teams here, not riding for trade teams. But if you do really well here, that's usually an indicator that you're going to do well. Again, some of these people are already on World Tour teams. Some are looking for those rides. Some are going to get either next year. But if you're doing well, even in a stage, but certainly overall, you very much could be a star coming up.
Yeah. Well, if you go back and look at the list of past champions, so riding this year, I think is he with Bora Hansgrohe? Sian Uiterbroeks, the young Belgian. He's going to be a good one. But the Tobias Holland Johannesson, who just was beat by Kevin Vermaerke, he won in 2021. Tobias Foss, another Norwegian, won in 2019, and he was the world time trial champion last year. But then you go back to 2018, Teddy Pogačar won Tour de l'Avenir. 2017, Egan Bernal. So you got some Grand Tour winners there. David Gaudu. 2016, Marc Soler. 2015, Miguel Angel Lopez. 2014, he's at a rough time of what he's doing. Ruben Fernandez, 2013, and Warren Barguil in 2012. So, for sure, some really big names have won there and gone on to do really well.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And so, this year, Lampardi again, McDonald, Riccatello, Schmidt, Simmons, and Lopez is the U.S. team there. And so hopefully we'll see some good results from those guys.
Yeah, hopefully there'll be some good sprints for Luke Lamperti. He's already got his World Tour contract though, so he's joining Lotto Quickstep. What are they called now? Lotto Quickstep?
Quickstep Soudal.
So Soudal Quickstep.
Soudal Quickstep.
Yeah. Okay, I get it right.
And they signed. Who they just signed a climber to help out Remco Evenepoel for next year. Spanish climber, right?
Yeah.
And so it's been interesting following that because his dad, Remco Evenepoel's dad, is his agent, and of course we know that the owner is also very outspoken.
Patrick Lefevre.
Lefevre. So
is he their owner and their?
I think he's the owner and the general manager or whatever. Yeah. He runs the program and owns it, I believe. Yeah, although he is clearly dependent upon sponsors, but I think owning the license is different. So like Jonathan Vaughters owned the license for Education First for a long time, or Slipstream, but then sold the ownership to EF Education First, but he still is the general manager. So sometimes it's different, but that's a different model too, because the sponsor actually owns the team, and that's actually been a problem now, or not problem, an issue with the women's team, because
I'm confused about the women's team, because there was an EF Education SVB Silicon Bank team, but now there's a new EF Education Cannondale team.
And that's because
but they don't have a relationship with the other EF Education SVB thing, because it sounds like it's like a brand new, like different people coming in, and not
it is
like
yeah.
How does that happen?
So Linda Jackson owned the SBT, the team initially. That's a team out of San Jose originally. So
Miko Landa signed with
So Linda Jackson owned that team, and that they've been around for a really long time. SBT, Silicon Bank, what's the part of it? Typical, right? So and then EF came in as a sponsor. And so then they're sponsoring that team, and they got a World Tour license. Now, but Linda Jackson owned it. Now EF, who owns the men's team, is starting their own team. So as an ownership,
2 EF Education teams next year?
No, they're not going to sponsor Linda's team anymore.
Is she going to get a new sponsor and still be around?
No, they're out now, because SBT and TIBCO both.
SVB, they had a big follow, or in a big
run on the bank.
Yes.
Okay. They're not doing well.
Putting it together. All right. But what about Linda Jackson? So
she's out now. Yeah, she's like left with the World Tour. She has a World Tour license and no sponsor. So that opens up a World Tour spot, which maybe EF will take then, the new team. I'm not sure. But it's also interesting too, because the Canadian woman who won Paris-Roubaix, Alison Jackson, she's moving to the new EF team. So she was on the old EF team, and she's moving to the new one. Yeah. But they're still building that team. Yeah. And so also too.
I wondered if she was going to move to it, because she's pretty popular.
Yeah. Corinne Lebecki is moving to that team as well too.
Jumbo Visma, right? I saw that.
And the person who started the women's team at Jumbo Visma, the manager, the team director, she's moving to that team as well.
Well, isn't Veronica Ewers too, right?
Oh, right. Yes, she is too. Yep. And she's going to be the centerpiece for their stage racing team.
Yeah.
So their Grand Tour team. So you're right. It is kind of confusing, because
I was like, they're announcing these new positions on it. I thought, oh, how is this a new team? It was around last year or what it was. Yeah. Right.
But it's kind of like Soudal, I knew who was sponsoring someone else, and they've sponsored Soudal.
They were Lotto Soudal. That's why I was confused when I was trying to come up with the Soudal Quickstep, because they changed their sponsorship line. Yeah.
But this is even more different, because they were a sponsor of Linda Jackson's team, and now they're a sponsor owner of the new women's team. So it's a little bit different even than the Soudal team, where Patrick Lefevre owns the license for Soudal Quickstep.
I'm glad Quickstep has at least stayed with the sponsorship, because it has some continuity there.
Right. Yeah, it's hard.
Like in the transfer, you see Veronica Ewers, EF Education, TIBCO SVB transfers to EF Education Cannondale.
Yeah.
So a new team.
So I hadn't seen actually the Cannondale was their sponsor now too, but I guess it makes sense because now sponsors that sponsor the men's team might also sponsor the women's team because it's the same owner. So like Jumbo, Visma, and Movistar and teams like that. And I think now Ineos is going to do the same thing too. They have both men's and women's teams, and they share sponsorship. And some teams work it really well where they have camps together, and the women and men work together. And some teams it's separated completely. And it seems to me like it generally works better when they combine resources and share a little bit of staff, because there's some administrative staff certainly that can do both jobs for men and women. And then there's some support staff too that you can trade knowledge, of, because they're doing a lot of the same courses and stuff too. And sometimes they'll race the same weekend, one day apart. And it'd be silly for them not to share knowledge of those things that are going on. Like the women could help the men if they're starting one day early, or the men could help the women if they're starting a day early, or to share that information about the courses, the history, the current conditions, tactics, things like that. It just would seem to make both squads stronger.
I think I remember, back 2017-ish, maybe when it was just a one-day race for the Tour de France Femme with an Avic Swift back then, when had a different name. Anyway, and there were multiple teams that had men's and women's sponsors, and I was trying to interview or talk to different people from the teams to see how much they were apart or together and it was pretty varying, degrees of collaboration. But I remember back then I thought the Trek team was really more together. I don't know if the Jumbo was already then or not, but yeah, now it makes a lot of sense to share resources, and I think it's fun for the riders too to have insights of both the men's and the women's programs. And I think
remember back in the day,
Annemiek van Vleuten with the Movistar, didn't she train with the men?
She trained with the U23 men or the junior national team. So for the Dutch for before Worlds.
Oh yeah, but for Movistar, I thought she would go riding with.
I'm not sure about that. Yeah, maybe. But I think before Worlds she was training with the Dutch national team. I remember though, Rebecca Much, when she was on T-Mobile, they had a camp together with men and women at one point, and so preseason camp. Yeah. That was and she said that some of the men were very welcoming of the women, and some of them were kind of standoffish about, like, what are these women doing here?
Yeah.
So so it has, that was quite a while ago. So there has been some kind of collaborative work between the men's and women's teams going on for some time. But that was one of the first programs too. I mean, the T-Mobile team was based out of the U.S. and they took over the Telecom team, I guess, from when they were having their issues and stuff too. So they ended up adding a men's team to the women's team, kind of in that situation than the other way around.
All right. Well, I see a couple other women going from EF Education TIPCO SVB to EF Education Cannondale. Letizia Borghese and the Italian rider, and then Magdalene Bellier, the Canadian. So
Lauren Stevens is still looking for a contract. That's she's our best
pretty
finisher.
Good Worlds.
Yeah, she's our best finisher at Worlds, 18th or something like that.
She's done some more gravel racing too. I see Chad Haga is going to gravel racing, and then I see Human Powered Health is struggling.
Women's team is confirmed for next year.
Yeah, the
men's team they've released everybody to look for their own contract. They're still holding out the hope that they will get us a sponsor and continue on. But at this point, they've said that all riders and staff are free to look for other contracts, and they're released from contractual obligations. So if they're under contract for anything beyond this year, they don't hold them to that anymore. So, but yeah, Lauren Stevens, she's done with her road season for the year, and she's gonna do all gravel now, I guess, the rest of the year. So
yeah, the big gravel race was SBT, right?
This weekend, yesterday.
Yes, yeah. I didn't even see who did well.
Keegan Svensson won again by he won Leadville by a lot, and then he won yesterday by not much, some. And Alexi Vermeulen, our friend from the podcast, was second in Leadville, and he was third in SBT. Oh. So he had a good, strong ride again. Okay. And apparently it was very, very hot. My athlete, Gaylord Adi, who oftentimes will win the 60+, even though he's 65, 66 this year, he was in flying fast for the first half of the race. And then just times dropped off after that, and I haven't talked to him yet, but it looks like the heat just really got to him and so many people, and they're finishing a lot longer than, Keegan is and stuff like that. So it was a hot day.
Sure. Yeah. I guess the longer you're out in the heat, the more it's going to affect you, right? So
for sure. Yeah. The longer you're spending in it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Wow. Oh, I saw the Bremer Classic, the Hamburg race. That's the one that Tyler Farrar won a couple of times. It's they're called the Bremer Classics. But Mads Pedersen, he's still holding his form high. After racing so well.
Did he break away and win solo?
No, he finished the same time with Danny Van Poppel and Elia Viviani. Let's see.
This is something about him bursting out of the field, and maybe he didn't win. Maybe he just burst out of the field to win the sprint, not to.
Yeah.
Because he's not a pure sprinter. He's a power sprinter. So Van Poppel and Viviani, well, Viviani less so, but Dumas are certainly pure sprinters.
Looks like on the same time as 46 riders, including Brandon McNulty finishing 12th.
Yeah. Did you think about him being like a time trial climber guy, and yet
he's got a pretty fast finish.
Yeah, right. He's got to have a good turn of speed if he's able to finish in 12th place in a race like that. Groenewegen was 17th. So,
and Brandon, I think he added a couple more years to his contract, right, with UAE.
Yes,
he's through 2027 now. I think he extended. So. Yeah. So. And he's only
25 years old.
25, yeah. Wow. Yeah. Hey, we still have some really good riders that are right 25 and under.
Oh, for sure.
Some really good riders, yeah.
And guys coming up too. So I think it's not gonna be like we're gonna lose a lot of these guys who are the current stars from US in the World Tour and then have to replace them, but actually let's have them still there and add more Americans.
Yeah, how old is Nielsen Paulus? He's kind of like 26. He's like a little bit like the oldest of that really strong group, I think. I would put them together. But Matteo Jorgensen is 24, and Kevin Vermaerke, he was right or strong. He's 22. Like you said, 22, and yeah. I always forget about Magnus Sheffield for some reason. Has he been hurt more this year? I mean,
he was hurt. Yeah, he had a bad crash. End of June, I think. End of June, and so I think he's on the road to recovery, but he is not.
He's only 21.
He's really young. Yep.
Yeah. Let's see. He's signed through 2024. And he says he's going to do the Deutschland Tour, according to Pro Cycling Stats. Yeah.
Which he might be. Yeah, I was reading about him not too long ago, and it said he was taking a little longer to recover from this crash than what we thought. And he crashed with someone else too, who was hurt. Oh, I'm sorry. That was when the person died. Earlier in the year, Magnus had a concussion in that one. So, that was understandably didn't get the attention of the guy who died. So his name's escaping me right now, but yeah, so he was in that same crash, and so concussion protocols obviously take you out for a while, and sometimes it takes people longer to come back than others from concussions. I mean, Greta Namenis took a year, and she still was feeling things, and that's why she ultimately retired. So so I think they were being cautious. So maybe he's cleared now of his concussion protocol and can get back to racing.
Yeah, let's hope so. The Deutschland Tours, I think it's running the same days as your Masters, like the 23rd, 27th. Brandon McNulty looks like that's too bad. I'm not going to go see that race. A lot of Americans going there with Brandon McNulty and
Gino Madar. I'm sorry, Gino Madar is the gentleman who
Magnus Sheffield. Oh, and the Tour de Suisse. Kevin Vermaerke. Corey Davis. Corey Davis is riding for Q36.5. I haven't seen a lot of him in races, but he's down for the Deutschland Tour. I remember one time it was like in the Munich. I did a Munich trip. I went and I saw, and I remember talking to Michael Rogers because he was leading that year. So they like the racing in Germany because the roads are really nice and smooth and good. I went riding today. That's a picture for me behind me. I'm drafting off me now, right? Yeah. Riding my bike, the just sits outside here that I'm always amazed it's still there. And I forgot the key for it, but I don't need the key for the locking. You just pull it open. So
it still stays there. So
yeah. Well, I think that rear tire is losing air slowly, so it probably goes flat pretty fast. So no one could just ride away with it. So maybe that's an advantage.
Maybe. But, in America, I think people would salvage parts off of it, if that was the case.
I put air in the tire, took it out, and I thought I only had about 3 gears that were working, but I've got like maybe 5 or 6 that are working, and the front brake works. It kind of sticks a little, so I kind of I don't know if I'm going slow because my brake's still revving, or so I always check it after. But I just go on the flatter route, just not stress the brakes. I brought some extra, like I needed a cable to change for the rear brake, and I brought bar tape because I had to undo the tape, whatever, but I don't have time to work on the bike when I could be riding, so I'd rather just go ride and put it off till next time. So
yeah, as long as it gets you.
If it's still there next time.
Well, I always wonder too. So like I've been doing some work on my time trial bike just because I'm going to do time trial nationals at Masters. I wouldn't go there just for that, but since I have some athletes there anyway, I thought I'd do it. And that bike, the braking is a little suspect on it. It's an old Cervelo P4, and it just isn't really made for city riding. And so lots of times I'll take it to a spot and I'll do a time trial practice, and then I'm perfectly safe, I think. But a couple times recently, or this one time, I actually just got on it and rode to the parkway and did some time trial work there. And I'm a little bit leery as I come into traffic and stuff with that one, because if I had to do an emergency stop, it might be difficult to do that. And so I'm guessing you're probably in some situation where you feel relatively safe on that bike, but then if it was a situation in which you really had to rely on it working perfectly, it may not service you very well.
Yeah, I was a little cautious. Also, it has a squeak. I think the bearings are somewhere coming out of the bottom bracket or something, because it's turning quite a bit and making noise, and so I don't have a bell on it, so at least it gives me. I'm passing some people though, so I'm not the slowest one on the trail. But it's a mixture of paved and some gravel along the paths that follow the Isar River that runs both north and south out of Munich, and so it was hot today too. It's like upper 80s here. We felt it right when we got off the plane. It was muggy too, and so but lots of people in the river just trying to cool off, I guess.
And yeah, well, they're talking like the Tour of Burgos being super hot and the Vuelta is supposed to be super hot. And then Kevin Vermaerke was talking about the Arctic Tour of Norway being super cold and how cold it was too. I mean, of course, they're vastly different areas, but at the same time, there's been a lot of excess heat this year in general in Europe and in America and all over the place.
Right, yeah. Although I talked to a friend in Atlanta, and she said that Atlanta's not had such a hot summer. It hasn't been too bad.
Supposed to be the hottest week of the year.
But it's getting hot now. Yeah, but now it's getting hot. Yeah, but now it's got. But up till now, it had been not too bad. So it's been hot in Florida for sure. Yeah. Finally got a little rain, so it's cooled off a little bit. We're
not supposed to have any rain this whole week here, so which is good for Masters Nationals not having rain. But yeah, definitely hot. The gravel race I'm doing on Saturday had some mud sections, but they said they should all be dried up by the weekend, so we shouldn't have to worry about mud. It might be kind of rutted in those areas, but at least be dry. And then the week after that, I've got the One Love Century in Atlanta, so I'll be in there for 4 out of the 5 days of riding that they do there, and hopefully it'll be dry and maybe cool off a little bit, just because people come from all over the country. And if you're a racer and coming from all over the country and you hit a humid spot, you kind of understand how cramping might be more prevalent and the things you have to do to mitigate that. But recreational riders, if they're coming from all over the country, a lot of them don't have much experience with that, and so they can be much more challenged by the heat and humidity than they would be otherwise.
What do you like to use to cool off? In races, you have ice socks that people hand up to riders to put down their backs. Do you have one of those cooling vests? I mean, do you
I don't, although I
before?
Yeah, I thought about maybe like getting one just as a coach, like because this week it's going to be really hot, and one of my athletes is going to race, so the pair athlete's going to race Kai on Wednesday in the heat of the day, like at 3:30 on Wednesday afternoon. So it'll be in mid 90s with 80-90% humidity, and it would be nice to have that vest on for the beginning. And then same thing maybe for time trial. So I think sometimes, maybe I should think about doing that. because that does help some pre-race. The ice socks, I don't know. Stacy Sims says that it doesn't really do anything because it doesn't cool down your core. Yet we see everybody doing it. It does make you feel better. And I was already thinking too for my gravel race next Saturday, I'm going to bring a Camelback because it's an 87-mile race, 83-mile race with 6,100 feet of climbing. So it'll be 5 hours potentially, and I'm not gonna be able to get by in just 2 water bottles. So I think I'm gonna bring my small Camelback I got at Unbound, which is a small lightweight one, and fill it with ice, and then have that for the whole day.
Have frozen water in it, or
yeah. So I won't. I'm not counting
on. Do you put it under your jersey? Will you put it like in a time trial? Where I remember doing the time trial in Florida, right? The Masters, we put underneath our.
I'll do that for the time trial. When I do the time trial on Thursday, I have just a neoprene sleeve, the earliest possible Camelback sleeve, and I'll put a more modern bladder in that, and I'll put that inside my jersey. But more for aerodynamics than it is for cooling, because having it cool in your back isn't going to make a huge difference.
Does it like work with your hump in your back? Do they have a position to put it to?
They say it helps. It's illegal to put in the front of your to fill that pocket, in front of your body. But it's not illegal to put in your back. So, of course, that's a UCI rule, I think, not a USA cycling rule. So it wouldn't matter for Masters. But, I'll put it in the back for sure for that one. And then for the gravel one, I won't put that one. I'll leave that one outside my jersey. We're going slower speeds and stuff, so it won't be as much of an issue. But I probably will, though, because I'll have 2 bottles of super fuel, and then I'll have just water in the 50 ounces on the Camelback. And I'll put a lot of ice in that for sure.
Yeah. I rode with Werner last week, in Salzburg. We'd planned a couple of years ago. It didn't work out when he got in COVID to meet in Salzburg, and he would bring bikes. And I think he forgot he was going to bring a bike, but he thought I had a bike here, and I told him, no, you need to bring a bike. And so he said, well, I've got I think he has time trial bike, mountain bike, and road bike. So
I saw you on a mountain bike, yeah.
Yeah, time trial bike wouldn't work for going climbing, so he brought his mountain bike and road bike, and I was like, he's pretty strong now. He didn't used to ride so much, and so but I felt like I climbed okay with the mountain bike. I didn't know how much it was slowing me down, and I knew the last climb we were getting to the top, and it was 10.5% average for the last mile and a half, last 2 miles. So it was pretty good. So
you're probably happy to have the gearing for the mountain bike.
Yeah, but if I tried to speed up or whatever, he always had an answer. He could, like, if it looked like I was gonna get ahead, he just jumped and like, oh, he's just playing with me. He didn't have any trouble, but yeah, it was I didn't mind. I'm always happy on any bike.
That's pretty steep for the long.
He could, I didn't ask him what he had, but I think he's probably running a compact, because he was spinning pretty good. Because I told him, like, on my normal road setup, maybe with 39.28 in the back, I guess. Once I get above 8%, I'm needing to stand a lot.
Yeah, you're probably down in the 60 RPM range then.
So. Yeah, so I can't keep sitting. He was able to keep sitting, and we had up 15% sometimes on some of the climbs. And he said he just has to stand when he's his back's hurting him.
Could you lock out the fork on the mountain bike, or did?
Yeah, we tried to lock it out. Yeah. So, but he was telling me about a big ride in Austria, a climbing ride. I think it was 230 some kilometers, 4 mountain passes, over 5,000 meters of climbing.
It's a big ride.
Huge, yeah. And it was hot then too. They said on one of the climbs there was like the volunteer fire department was there with their water. They said, oh, it saved him. But yeah, it was. And then there's the area too, like there's free range cows and stuff. So they bought a lot of volunteers making sure they were keep them off the road, especially on the descent when people were going down fast. And then there's those cattle guards before like tunnels. So he said, well, that's good that you didn't have to worry about a stray cow in a tunnel.
In a tunnel. See. Yeah. Right, that'd be horrible.
Yeah. So, wow, that's a pretty big event. Ortstal, I think it's called. Anyway.
In Austria?
In Austria, yeah. I think in Tyrol, probably. Tyrol. I don't know if I'd be up for that. 5,000.
You have to train. Yeah.
Oh,
that's a long distance and a lot of climbing.
Yeah, it would be difficult. So, yeah. we never talked about the women's road race, World Championship race, Lotto Kopecky, but I think before when we mentioned, I think we even mentioned like she would be a favorite as a cyclocrosser and big one-day racer. Yeah. So she did not disappoint. It was a great win for her.
Apparently, too, she really inspires. I'm not sure personality-wise, but her brother passed away this year, and so that was a huge impact. And she's been writing for him a lot. And she didn't want to talk about it a lot, I guess, during the World Championships. But apparently, she has inspired a ton of Belgian girls, young girls, to get racing licenses. And in Belgium, of course, it's the #1 sport, cycling, even above soccer for men, and not necessarily as much for women, but it is now becoming more so. And so she's had a huge effect on this. So she must be, quite the personality and really captures people's imaginations and stuff too, because it sounds like, and she's younger than I thought she was too. I seem like she's been around for quite a while because she's been so good at cross for so long. But it was a very popular win in Belgium too. I mean, not just because she was Belgian, but because of the kind of person that she is.
Right. Yeah. So the Belgian woman from Belgium took on all the big Dutch, favorites. The Dutch have 6 strong riders and won, and the Dutch man, Van der Poel on the men's side, took on the big strong Belgian team that was favored and won. So it was kind of interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was. I mean, you can't say it was a surprise that either, Matteo won or Lotto won, but certainly they had to play the cards right. There's been many years where the Belgian or the Dutch had the best rider on the men or women's side, and they wasn't able to win because they didn't work together. But this year it seemed like they were much more focused. And Annemiek Vermeulen too, she had a mechanical right towards the end, and I don't know if that maybe helped or hurt the Dutch women. Because they ended up getting second by a bike throw. Did you see that? Did you see the finish? So it was an Austrian girl who was in second place.
Yeah.
And then Demi Vollering sprinted so hard in that last finishing stretch, just caught her at the area end and got second place by a bike throw.
Cecily, though, the Danish rider, she had made the attacks, right?
She was off for
and Lotto
long time.
Came to get to her, and so it was a pity that she didn't stay on the podium.
Yeah.
I don't know what else, anything else we missed. I got my birthday list set up so we can do birthdays.
I need to look though to watch the under 23 men's road race, because on the GCN weekly broadcast or two, one of the commentators said that was their favorite race. William something. He's a journalist, and he's one of the guests there, and he said it was his favorite race of the whole championships because it was a nail biter. Apparently there was someone off the front who was cramping badly or somehow was really struggling towards the end, and the pack was coming quickly behind them, and it was a very exciting finish. So I have not watched it yet, but luckily I have GCN Plus, and so I can go back and watch it too. But it sounds like that was one of the more exciting races too. So even though the worlds are all over, I think there's still some things that I would like to see from it.
All right, check it out. We didn't really finish talk about the Vuelta coming up because we kind of mentioned the favorites. I was kind of thinking they're billing the Jumbo team to be winning with their top 2 guys, but somehow I think they might not win. The Remco Evenepoel might still beat him. I don't know.
Possible. I mean, you look at Evenepoel's team, Jan Hurt, James Knox, Casper Peterson, Peter Seri, Andrea Bigoli, Mattia Catania, and Louis Vervaeke. Yeah. It's not a bad climbing team, but not a super
depends if he has a bad day in the mountains, because sometimes he does have a trouble with the climb, but he's getting better at everything.
Yeah.
Evenepoel. So
and
I don't know how much other time trialing there's going to be. The team time trial that I'll be there, they're racing through the streets of Barcelona, and I don't think it's going to be as much difference, maybe as it was even Burgos between the top teams, maybe just handfuls of seconds. Yeah.
Well, the time trial is dead flat. It's stage 10, and it's 25.8K, so not very long, and being dead flat, the time differences shouldn't be as much. So it won't be as important as sometimes. Yeah. I look forward to seeing like how Joe Dombrowski, he rode a really strong Giro this year. And he's going to be riding for Astana, who, depends on how their leadership plays out there, but he may be free to go after stage wins for sure.
Yeah. We don't even know all the rosters yet, right? Whether Larry Warbass has got a spot. He's hoping to do something to get a contract for next year for him too, right?
Yeah, and he's riding pretty well right now, and he's certainly training for it. Right now he is on the roster. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I had heard that he was going, and then I heard it was up. They weren't sure. So,
right.
Yeah, and his plan was to, do stage hunting and hopefully get a stage win. So that'd be great. He's riding well. He rode well. He did his job well in the world, I guess. So he, was covering things really honestly.
Not much of a chance to do well in Borges with the top guys always at the front of the climbs. There wasn't really a chance for a breakaway to get up the road.
And he says he does better in the mid-mountain stages. So the stages not for pure climbers and not for rollers, but people that can climb, but also, are pretty strong overall too. And so that's the kind he looks for, that he can get into a breakaway and then hopefully be the best of the breakaway people.
All right. NCL, we didn't talk about that. The National Cycling League finished up. They had races in Denver and then Atlanta.
Back-to-back weeks.
Yeah, and they changed the point system a little bit, and it's men's and women's teams combining, for the points.
Yep.
And they weighted more points at the finish than they had before, which the finish in Miami when they started was kind of anticlimactic, but this definitely brought the interest a level higher for the finish because the more points out and made it more exciting races. But it was the Miami
Knights.
Miami Knights. There's two Miami teams, weren't there? Not in NCL, but I thought there was another Miami team too. Yeah.
There's another Miami team that's not an NCL team. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, which is just still fascinating to me that the teams have names like American sports teams. So.
Well, it's interesting too because some of the articles I was reading was not talking about the individuals as much as the teams, which is nice.
So they tried to focus more make it more of a team sport. And it wasn't in Denver race. They had guys off the front, and because you can substitute riders.
Yes.
Did they substitute a guy that's off the front for another guy off the front? He gets to stay off the front.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how they worked that, but they did talk about the riders pitting, and so in this latest race, there was a big a break going off the front, and then at one point, almost everybody in the break substituted riders, and then I guess everybody was fresh. They attacked the break again, then, and so it's definitely not your traditional bike racing for sure.
Yeah, so now you have cycling fans who know about bicycle racing confused about how the race is, and then you have new fans who are new to the sport and maybe just trying to figure it out as well. So nobody knows what's going on as much.
Oh, they did change though to the executive director or the CEO or whatever of that. So and they said that some of the rule changes that they made were to help make it more to honor the tradition more. So they think they're trying to make sure that those people who are cycling fans already can follow it easier. So,
all right,
so that's your base. That's your base audience. Yeah. You don't want to lose them, So
yeah, and maybe it'll be around next year too. We hope.
Well, they have enough money to be around next year. So there's a couple other former pro players, and I think one current pro like basketball or football player. Actually, a couple of pro football players are invested now, and a couple of basketball players and stuff too. So there is money flowing into the league from owners. They're buying teams. So, excuse me.
Bless you.
So I think it will be out on next year because they've got this year. There's only 3 teams owned by the league. So there's Miami. No, 2. Just Miami and Denver. The only 2 teams owned by the league.
Texas Roadhouse was a team that was figuring in some of the points it was mostly dominated by those 2 teams, but Texas Roadhouse was doing pretty well too, I think.
Yeah, there was a couple teams that were not, official league teams that were doing a lot. I think Texas Roadhouse combined with the women's team too to have their one team, and so there was a couple of teams that were really active, at least in Atlanta. I was reading the article and it was talking about not Denver very much, actually. To be honest, it was mostly Miami and a couple other teams. And at one point, I think Miami and Denver were kind of marking each other out, and a break got up the road of neither one of them because they were so far ahead in points, no one was going to challenge them for the overall. And then some of these smaller teams were out there trying to win the night. So yeah, it's a different style of racing for sure. It's a paycheck for a lot of guys. We were saying before earlier in the year that maybe would be retiring and stuff. Johnny Clark from here, lives in Lenore now, but the Asheville area is still racing this year because of a contract with Miami Knights, and so it's definitely helping people survive as bike
South
racers.
African Jens Reinhardt von Rensburg, Jense, no Reinhardt, one of those South Africans for Denver. I think he won one of the races. I think he won a race before then too. Anyway, I should write things down, I guess, to get the local scene because they don't pick those up on the pro cycling stats so much. But Taylor's my son's gonna do Green Mountain stage race coming up Labor Day weekend. You got the Maryland race coming up as well, big race.
Labor Day weekend.
Some of the top American riders racing there, and then the Canadian races too coming up with some big names. So. Good racing coming up, but the Vuelta starting this coming weekend. Let's wrap up with do some birthdays, although I'm not so excited because the number one guy on here is a guy with a suspect past, right? Eric Decker.
Yeah, I mean, he actually got busted.
4 times Tour de France stage winner. I guess they didn't take away all these races. And Amstel Gold Race winner, San Sebastian, Trento Adriatico overall. So, yeah.
I think we forget, though, too, that he was with Rabobank forever, and Rabobank is the same organization that Jumbo Visma is.
Right.
So Rabobank's got very checkered past. And
a lot of them.
Yeah, but it's, a lot of times ownership has changed and stuff, too.
Yeah.
This is the same organization, now. And Jumbo, is fortunately, I hope it's a pretty up and up club. Seems like it. Certainly most places are pretty separated from their doping pasts. But Rabobank, though, has been a huge supporter of cycling as an organization, as a bank, the Dutch bank.
Yeah, and other Dutch sports too.
Yeah, and so I think that's great that they've stuck it out, and I don't think they're responsible for the doping, hopefully not. But they actually have a presence in Chicago, and one of my athletes, Paulo Urzar, he worked with Rabobank for a while, or for Rabobank for a while, and was trying to get them to sponsor some stuff in Chicago even. And I guess they were talking to him and thinking about maybe doing it too. So they're definitely have a culture of supporting cycling in Rabobank. So so there is still some good stuff about that, even though Decker certainly was from that era that a lot of the top names were doping, and he definitely suffered from that.
Yeah. Well, no, there's a Dutch woman, Kiti Haga. 74, happy birthday, 2-time world champion, 9-time national champion in the Netherlands. So, not racing back in a time where they didn't have a lot of women's races, but she excelled on the big ones.
Yeah.
We were talking about Alfredo Binda a long time ago, and not knowing who he was at the one time when Corinne Becky won the one-day race, but I found out not only we learned later the multiple world champions and big wins he had, that he was the first one though to wear the rainbow jersey. He was the first one where they had the rainbow jersey. So I thought that was an interesting fact about the rainbow jersey.
Yeah, he's referenced in the books I read about some of the Gino Bartoli and those guys. They referenced Binda as being like a predecessor to those guys, and so what influence he was in Italian cycling. He really hugely affected the popularity of cycling in Italy for many, many years.
Yeah, so this a birthday list sometimes gives us a chance to look back at maybe some athletes and cyclists that are older that we didn't know much about because we didn't start following so much before the 80s, really, for us.
Yeah. Jose Luis Urbezbia is third on the list there, too.
Yeah,
so he's
78. So that's
he's a GC rider.
Racing in the mid 70s.
Yeah, he was the stage winner of the Vuelta de España.
Yeah. Yeah, not a lot of big names with celebrating their birthday on the 21st of August today, but there are some Americans too. We'd like to wish them a happy birthday. 54 today, Carrie Helmuth. Aiden Baird is 26. I have Sam Rosenberg.
Sam Rosenberg.
Also 26.
Jake Thompson.
Also 26. Wow, that's a 26-year-old today.
James Stempter.
Yep, he's 38.
I know James.
Happy birthday. Luke Word is 30. Happy birthday, Luke. And Eric Barlavov, 37.
I was looking to see James Stempter. It sounds very familiar. He's only 38.
Jacob Steinfeld is 23 today. And Jonathan Retzik, 41.
Popular birthday.
Yeah. He raced some over in Europe. He got his best placing was 8th in the Circuit des Ardennes International. Yeah. 8th in the stage. Wow. All right, Randy. It's good to catch up. Hopefully I haven't checked it. I put in for the press pass for the Vuelta, but I was kind of late. I didn't look at the deadline. I haven't checked to see if I got it yet. But
it seems like you're pretty successful in those, though. So even if you don't have it in advance,
last year I showed up and they didn't give it to me in Utrecht because they had too many people there covering it. So I'm hoping in Barcelona it won't be as big a deal since it's in Spain. Maybe.
Well, a bigger deal in Spain, but maybe not as big a deal. From other media.
Outside. Yeah, right. I mean, it'd be the normal big Spanish people. Yeah. So it's the same organization as Tour de France. It's easier.
I think they're 50% owners or something like that. So yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, if it happens that if I don't have credentials, then I can do video. I made a video from the Worlds. I didn't have credentials. I had a lot of views for that little video I made. But if I have credentials, though, maybe I'll get to talk to some of the Americans. So
that'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah. And usually they start pretty late.
Oh, for sure. They've had team time trials in the pitch black.
Getting dark. Yeah.
In the Vuelta, yeah, where it's been an issue for safety. So hopefully they don't have it be an issue for safety, but they also have raucous crowds. They're pre-dinner crowds when like the 8 or 9 o'clock team time trial start time. They'll go to dinner at 10 or 11. So yeah.
Looks like it says validated one. No, where is it? I gotta check that. Yeah, I want to check. It looks like I got it.
All right.
I'll show up and pretend like I do, whether I do or not. No.
I saw I had it. Yeah. So yeah. Sometimes they'll say, "Well, show me the email."
La prensa. So the Saída punto de encuentro. Hopefully that's the Zona Technica. Okay. Well. All right. I'll see what I can do, and we'll talk to you next time.
All right. Thanks, Dean.
Thanks, Randy.
Bye now.
Bye.